Let me be clear with you today because clarity is respect. I didn't come here to insult you, embarrass you, or talk down to you. I came here to wake you up because somewhere along the way, too many intelligent, talented, capable people started making decisions that don't match their potential, not because they lack ability, because they lack awareness. We confuse comfort with wisdom. We confuse excuses with reasons. We confuse being busy with being productive. And then we wonder why our lives stay stuck. Stupidity isn't about IQ. It's about ignoring what you already know is right. It's about repeating the same mistakes and calling it life. Today is not about blame. It's about responsibility. It's about looking in the mirror without lying to yourself. Because the moment you stop being stupid with your time, your choices, your energy, and your purpose, everything changes. And that moment can start right now. Stupidity is not a lack of intelligence, and it is not measured by degrees, titles, or the way you speak. Some of the smartest people in the world make the most damaging decisions because intelligence does not protect you from self-betrayal. Stupidity shows up the moment you ignore what you already know is right. You know when you are wasting time, but you still scroll. You know when a relationship is draining you, but you stay. You know when your habits are destroying your future, but you delay change and call it patience. That gap between knowing and doing is where real damage happens. It is not confusion that holds people back. It is resistance to truth. Truth is uncomfortable and discomfort demands action. So many people choose denial instead. They pretend they don't see the warning signs, even though they feel them every single day. Every human being has an internal compass. You feel it when something is off. You hear it when a decision doesn't sit right in your spirit. You recognize it when your actions don't match your values. Ignoring that voice is not ignorance, it is a choice. People don't fail because they don't know better. They fail because knowing better requires courage, and courage requires sacrifice. It means letting go of habits that feel good now but hurt later. It means saying no when it would be easier to say yes. It means accepting short-term discomfort for long-term growth. When you consistently choose the easier option, you slowly train yourself to tolerate a life beneath your potential. Most people don't ruin their lives in one dramatic moment. They do it quietly through small decisions they already know are wrong. One more excuse, one more shortcut, one more delay, one more time saying tomorrow instead of today. Over time, those small decisions compound, and then people act surprised when they wake up years later unhappy, unfulfilled, but deep down they knew. They always knew. They just kept hoping the consequences wouldn't arrive. Ignoring reality does not cancel it. It only postpones the bill, and when it comes due, it always costs more than expected. There is a difference between not knowing and not wanting to know. Not knowing is innocent. Not wanting to know is dangerous. It's when people avoid feedback, avoid responsibility, avoid accountability, and surround themselves with voices that comfort them instead of challenge them. They reject hard conversations and prefer soft lies. They mistake being agreed with for being supported. Real growth requires honesty, and honesty often hurts before it heals. When you avoid that pain, you also avoid progress. You stay emotionally young, mentally stagnant, and spiritually disconnected from who you could become. Ignoring what you know is right slowly erodes self-respect. Every time you break a promise to yourself, you weaken your trust in yourself. Every time you choose convenience over character, you send yourself a message that your future does not matter. That loss of self-trust is more damaging than any external failure. When you don't trust yourself, you hesitate, you doubt, you second-guess, you shrink, and then you blame the world for the very limitations you reinforce through your own choices. People often say they are waiting for motivation, but motivation is not the problem. Honesty is the moment you admit the truth about your behavior, motivation becomes unnecessary. Action becomes inevitable. The hardest part is not changing your habits. It is admitting that your current habits are self-destructive. That admission removes your excuses. It strips away your justifications. It forces you to take ownership, and ownership is heavy. It means you can no longer point fingers. It means the responsibility sits squarely on your shoulders. There is a strange comfort in pretending you don't know better because it gives you permission to stay the same. Growth threatens identity. Change challenges the story you tell yourself about who you are. Many people would rather protect their story than transform their life. They cling to old patterns because patterns feel familiar even if they are painful. Familiar pain feels safer than unfamiliar growth, so they tolerate mediocrity, not because they want it, but because they are afraid of what responsibility will demand from them. When you stop ignoring what you already know, everything begins to shift. Your standards rise. Your tolerance for nonsense drops. Your excuses lose their power. You stop negotiating with your weaknesses and start building discipline instead. You become more intentional with your time, your energy, and your decisions. Life does not suddenly become easy, but it becomes honest, and honesty gives you clarity. Clarity gives you direction. Direction gives you momentum. Momentum changes outcomes. This is not about perfection. It is about alignment. When your actions align with what you know is right, you begin to respect yourself again, and that self-respect influences every area of your life, the way you speak, the way you work, the way you choose, the way you walk away from what no longer serves you, and the way you step forward even when fear is present, because at some point you realize that continuing to ignore the truth costs far more than facing it head on and choosing to act differently, starting from the next decision you make in the quiet moments when no one is watching and you are left alone with what you already know. Comfort is seductive because it feels safe, familiar, and predictable, but safety is not the same as progress. Many people don't realize that comfort can quietly become a prison. It doesn't lock you with chains, it holds you with cushions. You wake up each day doing what you already know how to do, talking to the same people, thinking the same thoughts, and avoiding the same risks. Nothing feels wrong enough to change, yet nothing feels right enough to grow. That space between dissatisfaction and fear is where dreams slowly fade. Failure, on the other hand, is loud and uncomfortable, but it is honest. It forces you to pay attention. It demands reflects, exposes weaknesses that comfort works hard to hide. Failure has a way of teaching lessons that comfort never will. When you fail, you are forced to confront reality without filters. You learn where you are unprepared, undisciplined, or overconfident. You discover limits you didn't know existed and strengths you didn't know you had. Comfort never asks those questions. Comfort tells you that you're doing fine, that you can wait, that there's no rush. It whispers that tomorrow will be better without requiring anything different from you today. Failure doesn't whisper. It interrupts your life and forces a conversation you've been avoiding. People often say they fear failure, but what they really fear is discomfort. They fear being seen struggling. They fear embarrassment, judgment, and uncertainty. Comfort protects the ego. Failure challenges it. But the ego is not meant to be protected at all costs. It is meant to be shaped, refined, and sometimes humbled. Growth requires humility, and humility rarely grows in comfortable environments. It grows when you are stretched, corrected, and challenged by experiences that don't go according to plan. Staying comfortable too long dulls your sense of urgency. You stop feeling time pass. Weeks blend into months, and months turn into years. You tell yourself you're waiting for the right moment, not realizing that comfort has numbed your ability to recognize opportunity. When everything feels okay, nothing feels necessary. When nothing feels necessary, nothing changes. Failure creates necessity. It forces decisions. It pushes you to act, adapt, or accept a reality you don't want. That pressure, while uncomfortable, is often the catalyst for transformation. Comfort also encourages avoidance. You avoid hard conversations. You avoid difficult skills. You avoid accountability. You avoid environments where you might be exposed as inexperienced or unprepared. Failure does the opposite. It brings everything to the surface. It exposes what needs work and demands that you either improve or repeat the same mistakes. People who grow learn to respect failure because it gives them information. People who stay stuck run from it and cling to comfort instead. The danger of comfort is that it feels productive when it's not. You stay busy, but you're not moving forward. You have routines, but they don't challenge you. You have goals, but they're adjusted to fit your comfort level instead of your potential. You start measuring success by how little stress you feel rather than by how much progress you make. Over time, you shrink your dreams to match your lifestyle instead of expanding your lifestyle to match your dreams. Failure, when approached with the right mindset, expands you. It forces you to rethink strategies, build resilience, and develop discipline. It teaches patience, persistence, and perspective. You begin to understand that falling short is not the same as being finished. Comfort tells you to stay where you are. Failure pushes you to evolve. One keeps you safe. The other makes you capable. People who choose growth eventually realize that discomfort is not a signal to stop. It's a signal to pay attention. It means you are stretching beyond what you already know. It means you are stepping into unfamiliar territory where learning happens. Comfort tries to pull you back to what's easy, but easy has a limit. You can only grow so much without resistance. Just like muscles need tension to strengthen, character needs challenge to mature. Living too comfortably slowly lowers your tolerance for effort. Small tasks feel exhausting. Minor setbacks feel overwhelming. You lose your edge because nothing sharpens it anymore. Failure, however, builds endurance. It toughens you mentally and emotionally. It teaches you to keep going even when results are delayed. It rewires your relationship with struggle, turning it from something to avoid into something to use. The choice is not between success and failure. It is between growth and stagnation. Comfort promises peace but delivers regret. Failure promises discomfort but offers wisdom. When you choose comfort over challenge, you may avoid pain today, but you pay for it later with unrealized potential and unanswered questions about what you could have become. When you accept failure as part of the process, you gain something far more valuable than temporary ease. You gain the ability to adapt, to rise, and to move forward with strength that comfort could never give you, even when everything feels uncertain and demanding, and nothing about the path ahead feels easy or guaranteed. Excuses are clever because they sound reasonable, logical, and even responsible on the surface. They allow you to explain why something didn't happen without having to confront why you didn't make it happen. An excuse doesn't announce itself as weakness. It disguises itself as explanation. It gives you language that protects your pride while quietly stealing your progress. Over time, people become fluent in excuses. They learn how to justify, delusionalize poor choices, and soften hard truths until they no longer feel accountable. The danger is not that excuses exist, but that they start to feel true. Every excuse has a cost, and that cost is always paid in the future. When you say you don't have time, you're really saying it's not a priority. When you say you're waiting for the right moment, you're admitting fear of the wrong one. When you blame circumstances, people, or timing, you give away control over your outcomes. Excuses feel good because they remove pressure in the moment. They reduce discomfort. But that relief is temporary. The long-term price is stagnation. While you're explaining, time keeps moving, opportunities keep passing, and potential keeps expiring. Excuses are attractive because they sound intelligent. They use logic, statistics, stories, and comparisons. You can always find someone who had it easier or harder. You can always point to conditions that aren't perfect. And because the world is imperfect, excuses are endlessly available. That's what makes them dangerous. You don't have to lie to make an excuse. You only have to avoid the full truth. Partial truth is often more misleading than a lie because it feels honest while still being incomplete. The more you rely on excuses, the weaker your sense of responsibility becomes. Responsibility and excuses help you put that weight down, but strength is built by carrying weight, not avoiding it. When you stop carrying responsibility, you stop growing, you begin to expect progress without effort and results without discipline. Eventually, you start feeling entitled to outcomes you haven't earned. That gap between expectation and effort is where frustration lives. Excuses also shape identity. The stories you tell yourself about why you can't do something become the limits of who you believe you are. If you keep saying you're not ready, not good enough, too busy, or too late, your mind will organize your behavior around those beliefs. You start acting in ways that confirm your excuses. You hesitate, you procrastinate, you lower your standards, and then you point to the results as proof that your excuses were justified. It becomes a self-fulfilling cycle that's hard to break because it feels logical every step of the way. People who grow understand that reasons and excuses are not the same thing. A reason acknowledges reality but still seeks responsibility. An excuse uses reality as a hiding place. Life will never remove all obstacles for you. Waiting for ideal conditions is another form of avoidance. Progress is made by people who act despite imperfect circumstances, not those who wait for permission from life to begin. Every successful person has reasons they could have quit. What separates them is not luck or talent, but the refusal to let reasons turn into excuses. Excuses also damage credibility, not just with others, but with yourself. Each time you explain away a broken promise, you weaken self-trust. Over time, you stop believing your own intentions. You say you'll start, but you don't mean it. You say you care, but you don't act like it. That internal disconnect creates guilt, and guilt creates more excuses. It's a quiet cycle of self-betrayal that drains confidence and motivation. Letting go of excuses requires brutal honesty. It means admitting that you could have done more, tried harder, or shown up better. That admission hurts the ego, but it strengthens character. The moment you stop explaining and start owning, your energy shifts. You move from defending your past to building your future. You stop needing approval for your inaction and start earning respect through action. Excuses keep you comfortable, but they cost you growth. They protect your image, but they damage your integrity. They sound smart, but they produce weak results. When you stop using excuses, you reclaim your power. You stop negotiating with your limitations and start working on your capabilities. Responsibility becomes freedom because it puts your future back in your hands instead of leaving it trapped in circumstances, timing, or other people's approval. And that shift changes the way you approach every challenge, every decision, and every opportunity that demands more from you than your excuses are willing to give. People say a lot of things about what matters to them, but words are cheap and intentions are easy to announce. What truly matters is revealed in behavior, especially the small repeated actions that make everyday life. Habits don't lie. They operate when motivation fades and when no one is watching. You can claim that family is important, but if your time is always given elsewhere, your habits tell a different story. You can say you want success, but if your daily routines don't reflect discipline, learning, and effort, your habits expose the truth. Priorities are not what you list, they are what you live. Most people don't consciously choose bad habits. They drift into them. They start as conveniences, coping mechanisms, or shortcuts that slowly become normal. Over time, these patterns solidify and begin running life on autopilot. Once habits are established, they require less thought than change, which is why people often defend them even when they're harmful. Challenging a habit feels like challenging identity because habits shape how you see yourself and how others experience you. But avoiding that challenge keeps you locked into patterns that no longer serve your growth. Habits create outcomes long before people notice them. They quietly shape health, finances, relationships, and confidence. One small decision repeated daily carries more power than one big decision made once. The problem is that the results of habits are delayed. You don't feel the consequences immediately, so it's easy to underestimate their impact. By the time the results show up, the habits are deeply ingrained, and people act surprised by outcomes they've been rehearsing for years. Your habits are also how you manage discomfort. When stress hits, you fall back on what's familiar. That's when priorities become visible. Do you reach for growth or distraction? Do you choose discipline or escape? Do you confront problems or avoid them? These responses reveal what you value more than any speech ever. Comfort-based habits signal a priority of ease. Growth-based habits signal a priority of progress. You can claim one while practicing the other. Changing habits requires more than motivation. Motivation is emotional and temporary. Habits are structural. They are built into schedules, environments, and choices. If your environment supports your bad habits, your willpower will always lose. Real change starts by redesigning your daily systems to support the person you want to become. That means adjusting routines, removing triggers, and replacing patterns rather than simply trying to resist them. Discipline is not about intensity, it's about consistency. People often wait for a dramatic moment to change, but habits respond better to small, deliberate adjustments. Tiny shifts repeated consistently can reshape identity over time. When you start acting like the person you want to become, even in small ways, your self-image begins to change. That change reinforces behavior, creating a positive cycle. But it only works if you're honest about your current habits. Self-deception keeps patterns alive. Awareness weakens them. Habits also influence standards. What you repeatedly tolerate becomes your baseline. If you tolerate lateness, laziness, or distraction, those traits become normal. If you tolerate effort, focus, and discipline, those become expected. Over time, your standards rise or fall to meet your habits, not your goals. This is why people with similar opportunities end up in vastly different places. Their daily behaviors compound in different directions. There is no neutral habit. Every habit is either moving you forward or holding you back. Even inactivity is a habit with consequences. You are always practicing something, whether it's discipline or avoidance, focus or distraction, courage or comfort. What you practice daily becomes who you are. That's why change feels hard. It threatens a familiar version of you that habits have been protecting. If you want to know what you truly care about, don't listen to your words. Watch your calendar. Watch your energy. Watch what you do when it's inconvenient. Habits are the receipts of your priorities. They show where your time goes, where your attention lives, and where your future is being built. When you align your habits with your values, progress stops feeling forced and starts feeling intentional, because your daily actions finally support the life you say you want instead of quietly working against it in ways that shape your direction long before you realize how far they have taken you from path you thought you were on. People say a lot of things about what matters to them, but words are cheap and intentions are easy to announce. What truly matters is revealed in behavior, especially the small, repeated actions that make up everyday life. Habits don't lie. They operate when motivation fades and when no one is watching. You can claim that family is important, but if your time is always given elsewhere, your habits tell a different story. You can say you want success, but if your daily routines don't reflect discipline, learning, and effort, your habits expose the truth. Priorities are not what you list, they are what you live. Most people don't consciously choose bad habits. They drift into them. They start as conveniences, coping mechanisms, or shortcuts that slowly become normal. Over time, these patterns solidify and begin running life on autopilot. Once habits are established, they require less thought than change, which is why people often defend them even when they're harmful. Challenging a habit feels like challenging identity because habits shape how you see yourself and how others experience you. But avoiding that challenge keeps you locked into patterns that no longer serve your growth. Habits create outcomes long before people notice them. They quietly shape health, finances, relationships, and confidence. One small decision repeated daily carries more power than one big decision made once. The problem is that the results of habits are delayed. You don't feel the consequences immediately, so it's easy to underestimate their impact. By the time the results show up, the habits are deeply ingrained and people act surprised by outcomes they've been rehearsing for years. Your habits are also how you manage discomfort. When stress hits, you fall back on what's familiar. That's when priorities become visible. Do you reach for growth or distraction? Do you choose discipline or escape? Do you confront problems or avoid them? These responses reveal what you value more than any speech ever could. Comfort-based habits signal a priority of ease. Growth-based habits signal a priority of progress. You can't claim one while practicing the other. Changing habits requires more than motivation. Motivation is emotional and temporary. Habits are structural. They are built into schedules, environments, and choices. If your environment supports your bad habits, your willpower will always lose. Real change starts by redesigning your daily systems to support the person you want to become. That means adjusting routines, removing triggers, and replacing patterns rather than simply trying to resist them. Discipline is not about intensity, it's about consistency. People often wait for a dramatic moment to change, but habits respond better to small, deliberate adjustments. Tiny shifts repeated consistently can reshape identity over time. When you start acting like the person you want to become, even in small ways, your self-image begins to change. That change reinforces behavior, creating a positive cycle. But it only works if you're honest about your current habits. Self-deception keeps patterns alive. Awareness weakens them. Habits also influence standards. What you repeatedly tolerate becomes your baseline. If you tolerate lateness, laziness, or distraction, those traits become normal. If you tolerate effort, focus, and discipline, those become expected. Over time, your standards rise or fall to meet your habits, not your goals. This is why people with similar opportunities end up in vastly different places. Their daily behaviors compound in different directions. There is no neutral habit. Every habit is either moving you forward or holding you back. Even inactivity is a habit with consequences. You are always practicing something, whether it's discipline or avoidance, focus or distraction, courage or comfort. What you practice daily becomes who you are. That's why change feels hard. It threatens the familiar version of you that habits have been protecting. If you want to know what you truly care about, don't listen to your words. Watch your calendar, watch your energy, watch what you do when it's inconvenient. Habits are the receipts of your priorities. They show where your time goes, where your attention lies, and where your future is being built. When you align your habits with your values, progress stops feeling forced and starts feeling intentional, because your daily actions finally support the life you say you want instead of quietly working against it in ways that shape your direction long before you realize how far they have taken you from the path you thought you were on. Discipline is often misunderstood as restriction or punishment, but it is neither. Discipline is the bridge between intention and results. It is what transforms dreams into reality and talent into achievement. Many people believe that desire alone is enough, that wanting something strongly will make it happen. Desire is the spark, but discipline is the fuel that keeps the fire burning. When motivation fades is what keeps you showing up on days when you feel tired, uninspired, or distracted. Without discipline, good intentions remain fantasies and potential stays locked away untested and unrealized. Discipline is the quiet, consistent force that shapes your life over time, often without applause or recognition. Discipline is not about perfection. It is about commitment to the process even when the results are not immediate. Most people give up too soon because they expect instant rewards. They quit when progress is slow or when failure visits, not realizing that every small disciplined effort compounds into massive outcomes over months and years. Discipline is persistence disguised as routine. It is doing what needs to be done even when you don't feel like it, even when the world offers easier, more comfortable alternatives. It builds resilience, character, and confidence because you learn to trust yourself, to follow through regardless of circumstance or emotion. People often avoid discipline because it demands sacrifice. It requires saying no to short-term pleasure in favor of long-term gain. It asks you to prioritize growth over comfort, effort over laziness, consistency over convenience. That is why discipline separates those who succeed from those who coast. Talent, luck, and intelligence play roles, but discipline multiplies their effect. It is what allows someone to take imperfect opportunities and turn them into mastery. It is what enables someone to recover from setbacks stronger than before. Discipline is the invisible backbone of every story of achievement. Discipline also shapes identity. When you commit to showing up consistently, your habits align with your values and your actions define who you are. People don't become disciplined overnight. They become the type of person who is disciplined by the choices they make every day. Each small decision to act with intention strengthens self-trust and reinforces belief in your own capabilities. Over time, these micro choices accumulate into a lifestyle, a reputation, and a trajectory that no external circumstance can easily derail. Discipline turns vision into reality because it ensures your actions are never random, reactive, or scattered. The absence of discipline is often masked by business or distraction. People fill their days with activity, but activity is not achievement. Discipline is about focus, prioritization, and deliberate effort toward what matters most. It is about controlling impulses, mastering time, and making decisions that serve your future self rather than immediate gratification. Every moment spent undisciplined is a moment lost because time cannot be reclaimed. Discipline is the guardian of your potential, the tool that allows you to convert ambition into measurable results. Discipline also creates freedom paradoxically. People think discipline restricts them, but without it, life is chaotic, directionless, and reactive. With discipline, you control your choices instead of being controlled by circumstances, habits, or emotions. It gives you leverage over your own life. When you are disciplined, you are not a victim of distraction, failure, or laziness. You create structure, momentum, and clarity. You build the life you intend instead of drifting into the life that happens to everyone else who lacks focus and follow through. Discipline transforms uncertainty into confidence, potential into accomplishment, and intention into impact. Many fail to embrace discipline because it is invisible at first. There is no immediate applause, no instant recognition, no viral moment. The results are slow, incremental, and often unseen by others. Yet those who commit understand that long-term growth is rarely flashy. It is earned in quiet repetition, daily choices, and the steadfast refusal to settle for less than what is possible. Discipline is cumulative. Each act of consistency compounds until it becomes unstoppable momentum, shaping outcomes that once seemed impossible. Discipline also teaches accountability. When you commit to structure, effort, and follow through, you can no longer blame luck, circumstances, or others for your results. You own them. And ownership creates confidence, self-respect, and resilience. You learn to adapt, adjust, and persist. You learn to measure progress honestly and act when corrections are needed. Without discipline, life is reactive. With discipline, life becomes proactive. It allows you to pursue your goals with intentionality, to meet challenges head on, and to cultivate excellence in every aspect of your life. Discipline is the ultimate differentiator because it compounds over time. Talent can be squandered, opportunities can be missed, and motivation can fade, but discipline persists. It builds habits that outlast feelings, routines that survive distractions, and systems that generate results regardless of circumstance. It is the quiet force that turns ordinary people into extraordinary achievers. It demands patience, effort, and courage, but it delivers results, growth, and mastery. It is the daily practice of doing what is hard, what is necessary, and what aligns with your highest potential, shaping not only what you accomplish, but who you become in the process.